I wanted to do this one with goggles on, but I guess these blurry, scratched up sunglasses will be the best representation. So 1 Corinthians 10:13 says, "No temptation has overtaken you that is not common to man. God is faithful, and he will not let you be tempted beyond your ability. But with the temptation, he will also provide the way of escape, that you may be able to endure it." This is a concept and a tough subject. I don't think I'll ever be prepared for this one, but I do have to shout praise in my life, and also, hopefully this will inspire you. Maybe not with this specific subject, but maybe you can apply this strategy to something that you're dealing with in your life. So the title is Bear Cave or Beer Cave. Um, some of y'all may know my nickname is Cold Beer Bernier, or was in the past at least. And that was a very fun part of my life, that being announced over the loudspeaker for wakeboarding contests. But I had the temptation of that becoming my identity. There were a couple times in social situations where I felt like um, I had to live up to my reputation. Or if, maybe after the contest or when everybody's getting together, I felt internal pressure to live up to that name of, cold beer. He probably should have a beer in his hand, right? And I think overall the concept of beer is good. I think it can be used in a way that is good and can maybe provide just a sliver of reward in your life. Um, Being able to relax after a long day, or going through a project and knowing by the end of it you get to crack a cold beer with your buddies. That is totally cool, and I may still continue to do that in certain situations, but consuming alcohol and letting it consume you are two different things. Repetition is probably the one word that if it gets tied to beer, then you get labeled as being an alcoholic. That's just what they do. That's just who they are. They drink beer. Now, this has impacted my family and continues to impact my family. Um, I've seen the good sides of alcohol, and I've seen the not so good sides. I've seen it used as a stimulant, or a way to relax at the end of the day, and I've watched it consume my family members, some of them. And that's why it's hard to talk about this, but in order for me to be authentic and real in these videos, I need to address tough subjects. So here we are. Um, so repetition, just remember that your identity is not beer. No matter where you're at in your walk, whether it be recovering or um, in the plateau, stumbling to get out of bed, whatever that is, just know that your identity is separate from beer. You don't need beer. Although your brain will try to tell you that you need it, and the world will tell you that it's the one thing that you can't quit cold turkey, which that may be true. But there's definitely steps that you can take in the right direction, and I want to encourage you that you can do this and you got this. And fall back on 1 Corinthians if you need some uplifting words of Scripture. I have a tough question. How can something that is labeled a depressant be life-giving? I think this is the magic of alcohol, because once you consume, or maybe you're overserved to a certain point, you get a buzz. That, there's no secret about that. When you consume multiple alcoholic drinks, you're going to catch a buzz. Um, and at that time, it feels like it's giving you life. It feels like you're able to think a little bit farther. Let's say you're riding a motorcycle. Well, you're going, you've been riding this motorcycle around in the fifth gear, and then you have a sip of alcohol, and your brain is saying, well, now you've got a sixth gear. I think that's false. Um, Alcohol is a very slippery slope, and one of the biggest things that I want you to understand is you're actually borrowing life from the future. When you drink alcohol, you're bringing that, the most important part, to being right now. Last video, there was an airplane that interrupted. This video, there's a train that interrupts. But look at alcohol and think about it. Is it giving you life, or are you just borrowing life from later on? What is a hangover? A hangover is from when you've been overserved. A hangover is you having to struggle through the next day because you drank a little bit too much the day before. And I had a moment that's unrelated to that, but I was on the boat where who I was with on the boat said, I don't mind if you drink a little bit, or I feel safe in the boat with you. I know you're going to make the right decisions. Just do you. And when he said just do you, I couldn't help but bring a smile to my face, because I was already doing that. And God has given me the strength to say no to alcohol and to see the benefits in not consuming alcohol. Now, I still struggle on the daily with other temptations, but I'm so thankful that God gave me that stronghold. And the stronghold is I'm borrowing fun from the next day anytime that I'm over consuming alcohol. I do still enjoy beer, but I want to try to save it for special and dynamic times. There's a nonverbal communication that comes around beer, and what that is, like, is he down? Is he cool? Is he a part of the turtle club? Like, does he know how to relax? Does he know how to separate work and play? And alcohol is one of the easiest examples of that, of like, hold on, I shouldn't consume alcohol before I work, right? But when does the play start? And I've had to learn that the hard way in my past, not so much with alcohol, but with other things. You got to work before you play. And so when you start to consume alcohol early in the day, your priorities are out of line. Think about alcohol as a dessert. This may be an easy one for you, but I don't see anybody eating a McFlurry and then immediately going and getting another McFlurry. So, the moderation concept, it helps if you look at alcohol as being a dessert. Again, you don't eat dessert every night. And if you do eat dessert every night, hopefully you don't drink a beer and eat dessert every night. Also, I want to talk about eating straight from the bag. There's a concept of stacking your beer cans to be able to keep track of where you're at. Also, when you're eating things out of the can, it's hard to keep track and tell yourself when to stop. So, the bear cave. Why are bears angry? I'm thankful I have never met a bear, but I imagine that they're pretty angry and pretty hangry after they hibernate. But I think we can look at that animal and see that the hibernation actually makes the food a bigger reward. So maybe you need to take a little time and hibernate from beer or alcohol consumption, and that will allow you to enjoy it more when you do get the chance. Less is more is a concept that you will never hear alcohol salesmen say. They're always talking about light beer. The less calories in a beer, the more that you consume. And then right at the very end of the ad, they say, please consume in moderation, drink responsibly. So I just encourage you, less is more, and don't try to chase the purple dragon. If you find yourself getting 2 to 3 to 4 to 5 beers deep and not feeling a buzz, I'm sorry to tell you, but it sucks. That's time that you need to take off. You need to take some time off. So, not very positive and uplifting video today, but I did want to go ahead and get it out there. Um, Bear cave, beer cave, you name it. Um, let's try some water next time.